partners, right? And in my case, that's Nate as our sales director, and broadly that's STG and Greg, your work in creating great service in the ESC peer group. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Andy.
All right. I may have had disabled chat on accidentally beforehand. So it's possible that we're going to need to do something where if you guys want to have a question toward the question time, we can raise your hand. So bear with me. It's possible that I might have done that unbeknownst to me. So attendees can chat with. Okay, you know what? I can change the setting here. Analyst can. Okay, let's test this now. Can everybody see this and try to chat back if you don't mind? This will be helpful for later. Cool, here we go. Thank you. I have a friend texted me letting me know he could chat, so I appreciated that. Welcome, y'all. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. So, hey, let's get started on time, huh? Let's do that. That'd be great. So, hey, everybody, welcome. My name is Ryan Groth, and I am one of the hosts of this webinar web class format that my partner in this venture, Greg, Hayne, and I started a couple years ago, maybe a few years ago. And we're excited to feature another fantastic guest in the industry who we both know and we have vetted as a credible communicator of best practice in their journey. And I'm very excited for that. So welcome everyone to the webinar. Greg, good to see you again, my friend. Welcome.
Ryan, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Unbeknownst to many of you, we had massive technology challenges this morning because neither Nate or Greg could log in. Now, obviously, we made it, but there was a lot of scrambling going on about 15 minutes ago.
You know, we got to be like a duck, you know, where the feet are moving, but on top, everything's cool, right? That's that is exactly it.
There are a lot of feet moving.
For sure. So good stuff. I'm going to be your host, just kind of being here to help with Greg and I to foster connection. And we don't want this to be a one-way webinar. This will be a multiple back and forth type of an experience. Greg and I do have something special for you at the end. That's a free training and a free resource. So I would encourage you to stay on and so hang out for a bit. And so this will be an hour-long webinar. We'll end on time. And so we're excited to have you on. So Nate, I'm going to introduce our featured speaker today. Nate Bush is with, as you may have heard, if you heard Andy, he's president of Weather Shield, and his father, the visionary Jim. They are a West Michigan-based commercial roofing contractor, or how you guys may say in Michigan, a roofing contractor. And I've had the pleasure of getting to know Nate and his father and Andy from afar, and learned about their organization and the type of operation they have is one that many of you, I would say, you will be inspired by, and many of you will hopefully be drawn to some of their change in their journey, and you know, hopefully feel a degree of wanting to take some action toward a betterment of your company after today's webinar. But I had the pleasure of spending some time with Nate at our events, and then actually currently, as of the last 2 days, at their actual office, spending time with their sales team personally. And you know, we won't go too deep into what we did. It's top secret. But anyway, it was fantastic. So Nate, welcome to Service Growth, and the floor is yours. We're excited to have you. And a couple more housekeeping rules. You may ask questions in the chat. You may raise your hand. We may not call on you and answer it yet, but we will have every question answered, and we will have an opportunity to interact by the end of the webinar, and we'll wrap things up after Nate shares his story and his best practice. So Nate, the floor is yours, sir.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys. And thank you, Greg and Ryan, for the privilege of being able to jump in here with you guys. So I am going to share a screen here. All right, you guys able to see my screen here? Awesome. All right, so Weather Shield. What we're going to do, I'm going to talk for a while, but we're going to make sure we leave lots of room for questions. So I'm going to try not to go in very deep with any of the things that we talk about here. And you guys ask questions and I can jump back in and we can circle back to anything that you guys would like to. So from a really high level, I'll just share some of the background, some of our previous sales culture, what we did to transform it, how that impacted us, and then we'll leave time for questions. So our backstory. So Weather Shield's growth really started in 2018. At that time, we were doing about $12 million in revenue, and we set a goal of $30 million by 2027. And when we set that goal, we thought we were just absolutely crazy. We ended up hitting the goal in 4 years, did 34 million by 2022, which ended up being 37% growth per year. We became an Inc. 5000 fastest growing private company in America. And then this past year, we hired a business consultant and he looked at our numbers and he said, boy, you know what we call that, boys? We call that hair on fire growth. So that's been our journey for the past 5 years. As I think about our culture back in 2018, we had a couple things going for us. So the things that we did really well is we had a great reputation and a strong customer base. We sold on value, not price. So we were rarely and didn't have to be the lowest price. And we also did mostly negotiated work. So we weren't bidding a lot of jobs. We weren't dealing with professional buyers. We had a lot more weaknesses than we had strengths, though. One of the bigger ones, our sales team, really, we just got company generated leads. So our sales guys weren't really selling stuff that they drummed up. We sat around and waited for leads to come in the door, and then we would go try to close them. Our pay for our sales team was not in line with our growth goals. When we onboarded new salesmen, it took at least a year, usually 18 months, before we would really turn them loose on their own. So we had a really long onboarding time. And then probably the last one and the most important one, we were so scared about the sales goal because we had no way to ensure we would hit that goal. The only thing we could do was hope more leads came in the door if we stayed on our current path. So our transformation, there are 6 things that we ended up doing to help us grow 37% per year. So when we started, I created a culture issue. And that culture issue where our sales guys are aggressively just waiting for the phone to ring. So how do we change culture? The most effective way is to get everyone so that they're pointed in the same direction. So get really clear on where we're going and why we're going there. So Patrick Lencioni is known for saying, if you can get all the people in the organization rowing in the same direction, you can dominate any industry and any market against any competition at any time. Many of you guys have heard that, but that's absolutely been true for us over the past 4 years. So Weather Shield created our purpose, which is to help people become their best self. And then the second question that everyone's going to ask is, what's in it for me? So we're clear on where the company is going. Now we go back to all of our sales guys and make sure they're aligned with that purpose and help show why it's in their best interest to jump on board and do a 180 and really start pursuing that. And once we start pursuing that, like once we're all aligned, now you can begin changing the culture. So, Greg, Ryan, any comments or anything you guys want to, if I want you guys to jump in as you see fit.
You're doing just fine, Nate.
Okay.
All right.
Keep sharing your story.
Okay. Second one, consistent, repeatable sales process. Have to get everybody doing it the same way. There are lots of different selling systems. You guys have heard about a lot of them. So I'm just going to share just briefly what we're using. So the system that we're using is baseline selling. And STG has really helped coach us on how to do this and how to implement this well. The theory behind baseline selling is obviously get all the way around the bases. And once you've got all the way around the bases, you've hit a home run or you've hit a run. Now you've closed the deal either as won or as lost. So to get to first base, we're doing prospecting activities. So we're making the phone call, trying to find some kind of problem and scheduling a meeting to just talk about it. Once we're at that first meeting, now we have that suspect and we're going to be going from first to third base generally during that one meeting. For many teams, they can do a one close sale and they can get all the way around the base just in one call. For us, it happens to be two. But this meeting we call a discovery meeting. And the point of this meeting is we're not trying to give them a quote. When they call and say, hey, we need a quote, we're not saying, sure, what's the address? We're saying, I'm not sure if we can help you. Let's go talk about it some more. So that's been a mindset shift. So we're at the meeting. They obviously have a need because they're willing to talk to you. There are tons of people in every industry who have lots of needs and still don't ever do anything. So it's not good enough. They have a need. Why do they need it? What are the compelling reasons? Speed on base. Get them to pay attention to you. Because the more they're paying attention to you, the less they're paying attention to your competition. We quantify what happens if you don't do it. What's the cost? Once we have all that information, now we switch from a suspect to a prospect. We're still in the same meeting, but now we can actually start talking about the decisions and talk about more. So are you committed to doing it correctly and doing it right the first time? Are you willing to pay more for it to have it done right? How are the decisions made? Who makes the decision? What's the timeline for the decision? At the end of all of that, now we can decide if we've gotten enough favorable responses, are we willing to give them a bid or not? If yes, we give them a bid. If it's a one call close, you go get the field work, get the field data, and you come back and you present it. For us, we leave, we schedule another meeting and go back. And now you can present it and you can close it. So that was really high level, pretty quickly, but you can see how once you have a consistent process, now you have something specific to train on, you can build your KPIs off of it, and it'll really help us as we move down, as we go further into the things that helped us transform. Go ahead, Ren.
Yeah, so having just been with you guys a couple of days, there's a few sales reps that I had some one-on-one time with that shared the way you used to do it at Weather Shield. And essentially when a lead was generated, I mean, we'll just send out the estimator to go on the roof, do an inspection, come up with a price. And then that was the first step. And so what's changed now that they said, that they testified was a game changer was, if there's a lead, we first off have that meeting in person every time. And that starts to help you guys control the process and really understand their needs and their reasons why, to qualify it and dig deeper. And then now your time that is being used to estimate has a much higher chance of closing versus the old way, which was not as relational, lower closing ratio, harder to sell value, harder to get to decision. It was just a lower sales outcome on average by really doing it that old way, which is pretty very common in our industry. It's like, hey, they want a quote. That's what I'm doing, right? I'm going to go give them a quote. It's exactly what I should do. And what you guys have done is you said, hey, I want to make sure that they're actually in an ideal situation where it's a win-win for everybody. Because you can quote a lot of people and not actually help them, because either they're using your quote and getting somebody else or never doing anything at all, and they actually still have issues, and you're not able to truly help them with the value of your service. So I just wanted to comment on kind of what the old way looked like versus this way, and that contrast, and how important that is for you guys to remember.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
And it's very easy for you to distinguish yourself in the marketplace when you're doing this, because nobody else is doing this. Everybody else is rushing out to give a quote. So simply going through this process, even if you don't do it that well, it's really, really sets you apart from everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's absolutely something to be said about, you know, staying behind your customer or your prospect and not just, yep, sure, I'll give you a quote. I'm not positive if we should give you a quote or not. Like, there's absolutely something powerful about being able to say no. Hire the right people. So there are 4 questions that came to mind when I'm thinking about hiring the right people. Who am I looking for? What drives them? What skills? Where to find them? When I'm hiring a salesperson, I want the best of the best. I'm looking for the top 1%, not in my industry, but in all sales organizations. I think that's a common mistake that I see with people, specifically in the trades, is they set their sights too low and are worried. I don't know exactly why, but I think people may be worried about the power that a really talented sales guy could have. Because if you're great at sales, you're great at managing people's emotions, and you're great at getting high margin, high prices. That also works with salary. So I think people can tend to be afraid to get what they could. So we want the best. What drives them? We do personality profiles, and what we're trying to figure out, there are 3 things that I look for. So the first thing that I look for is I want the people on my team to be resourceful. So resourceful is people who are driven by practical results and want to return on their investment. So resourceful people are find a way to win. Second one is I want people who are intentional. Intentional, the opposite of intentional is altruistic. So people who are driven to assist others for a purpose, not just for the sake of being helpful. What I find is people who are altruistic tends to do free consulting because they just want to help everyone, even if it's not beneficial to them. So the guys who are intentional won't let that happen. And then the third one that I'm looking for is people who are commanding. People who are commanding are driven by status, recognition, and control over their own freedom. So they're the leaders. They're a bit mavericky. They want to be in control of their destiny. Fourth one is skills. So skills really depends on your timeline. I hire for talent, not skills. This only works if you have the freedom and the time to actually build somebody up and get them to where they're an effective salesperson, and that can take a year or 2. So there are times where you don't have the luxury of training and onboarding somebody for talent, and you have to have skills as well. But talent comes first at any rate. We've had a lot of success partnering with sales coaching companies like STG and Greg Hayne to help train our guys so that it's not all on me to train and onboard people. And there are also some really good personality profiles that can use. So we use one with STG. Ryan, I don't remember the name of it. It's like Sales Insights or something.
Yeah, so it's called Objective Management Group.
Okay.
You have to buy it through us. So if you go search for it and say, hey, I would like to know more, we would end up calling you about it. But yeah, it's what I like about Objective Management Group, and I love the DISC and I appreciate the DISC. And the DISC is a very powerful tool. So there's several others. When I started STG, I found that there was a lot of subjectivity required to understand the way to develop a salesperson and what skills that are the gaps, rather than just like trying to delineate between personality traits and what the skills needed to be. I wanted something that could help identify the skills more objectively. So we use this tool. It's called Objective Management Group, or OMG for short. And it allows us to evaluate existing sales team members and sales managers. And also when we are looking at potential candidates to join, either sales managers or sales people, we're able to kind of preset what we would desire from that role in terms of the bar, right? Is it, and there's a lot to open up there, but essentially we can filter their answers of those questionnaires up against our desired skill set that we're looking for. And it would spit out a recommendation or a, hey, we don't recommend them. And so that's really helping to identify some of the sales skills that we're looking for as a baseline to start in your organization.
And I want to add to this. I'm a certified DISC guy, and everything that Ryan just said is completely correct. Although you can use these DISC reports where you have motivators and these other skills to paint a picture, the OMG report is just better for salespeople. It's designed for sales professionals, at least the way Ryan uses it. It's outstanding for that.
Yeah, we do DISC profiles on everyone as well. DISC is really helpful in understanding how people behave, but it doesn't get into the why. So the motivating drivers are the why, not the how. So you have to go a little deeper than what DISC can do. And I have sales guys who are across the spectrum with DISC profiles. So it's not just the high influencer people who are successful. You can have people who are systems guys who do great, as long as their motivating drivers are aligned. Okay, last one, where to find them. So if I'm looking for the top 1%, where I'm typically not promoting guys from the field. And it's not to say it doesn't work. And there are people who are in the field who are born to be in sales, but I'm looking for the guys who were born to be salespeople. One of my guys was a clinical psychologist. So he was a practicing clinical psychologist, and psychology, he told me, is the art of asking a question, listening to the answer, and then deciding what question next to ask. That's sales. So psychologist, like, it's the same thing. So he's tremendous. Head of development for a not-for-profit. Also, like, high-level people. Superintendents for schools. High-level, high-capable people. Super good at negotiating and navigating conflict, because that's what they do all day. Commercial realtors. So that's typically where I would, if I could go and pick where I'm choosing people from and trying to find candidates, those are my 4 spots where I love to find people. Okay.
Fantastic. Okay.
Align comp with results. So compensation, I have come to realize there's no perfect way to pay people. And it is definitely more about how you pay than who you pay. So there's 2 mistakes that I think people are common to make. One is not aligning compensation with results. So sales guys that are all salaried aren't incentivized to try to grow their business. So I think that's a mistake. I think the other mistake is people cutting off their base too quickly. And I think the root issue here, when people are trying to, like, say, hey, yeah, I'll guarantee you for 2 months, for 3 months. Like, it takes time, especially in the commercial world. It takes time to build up your network. And I think people are worried about overpaying people who may not ultimately be a good fit. But if you're doing your job as a sales manager and you have your KPIs and you're watching the activity, the results are going to come. And I'm not afraid to pay somebody. So we pay people, we guarantee them for at least for 1 year, I guarantee everybody $85,000. And I generally tell people, if you're not making 100 grand by the end of the first year, you're probably not the right guy. The other thing, if you're a top 1%er, are you going to be happy with making 150 grand a year? No, I don't want somebody who's happy making 150 grand a year. I want somebody who's pissed when they're making 150 grand a year, because those are going to be the top performers.
Making my oil, get me fired up, Nate, just by talking.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, love it. All right.
Beautiful.
Work your networks. So now we've got who, we've got a direction. What are we doing? So the first thing is just working your networks. So the basketball term for this is just active hands. Just keep moving, keep your hands moving in as many pots as you can. So there's a meeting series that we call just development meetings. So ADMs. So working your existing network is we go in and we meet with somebody who we're already doing work with. Doesn't matter if they like us or they don't. Go meet with all of your existing customers. And there's 4 questions. How are we doing? And then you shut up and listen. It usually takes, there's usually at least a 5, 6, 10 second awkward pause. Because, hey, how are we doing? Good. Well, there is this one thing. Oh, okay. What else? Awkward pause. And let the silence go, and you will eventually get it out of people. It's not going to happen with the first question. How you doing? Oh, you're terrible. It's pretty rare that happens. Once you've got all that out, what else is going on? And you shut up and listen. And see what else with them they can do. What else is going on? What other work are they potentially doing? Third one, how can I help you? We've got a great network of people. We work with a lot of companies. So you haven't any trouble in any areas, any other areas of your business. So we've got lists of people that we can refer, that we trust, that we can refer people to. So we've got accountants, accountant partners. We've got marketing folks. Like we've got landscapers, we've got painters, HVAC. So regardless of your industry, figure out who you already have a relationship with that you actually trust well enough to be able to refer somebody and try to help. If you actually get them to tell you that and you can give a referral, makes the last question really easy. Who do you know? And can you introduce me? Greg or Ryan, any more thoughts on that?
I think it's great.
Yeah, the ADM, I think as I was getting just really close up to your team, the biggest first shift was we're going to meet everybody in person, baseline selling. Second thing is we're going to work our networks and grow our accounts. And what they found was there was a lot of accounts that had a lot more work and a lot of opportunities to connect us. But it requires the proactivity of the salesperson to do that. And when they started to do that, we started to see great expansion of those accounts. And that ADM format is a tool to help you do that. In fact, you started to, we coach on this, but you even made that part of their KPI, because we know that if they're doing ADMs, they're meeting with people about properties, or they're meeting people who can influence people who have properties, or your ideal client. Those types of meetings, no matter what, will turn into something as a form of relational prospecting. And so it's great to hear firsthand how that has looked. And what's happened is those who have had accounts or have built and either earn their own accounts or have existing accounts, those are your top producers right now. The ones who've been able to proactively grow those.
Yep.
Newer ones are now at a stage where they're, they have to find their own, and they're going to do the ADM process as those grow in addition to their new account prospecting, hunting activities.
Absolutely. Track your funnel. I don't have a ton of wisdom here. Everybody knows KPIs. Everybody knows you back into your numbers. So the two things that I'll comment on, what gets measured gets done, which is pretty obvious. The second one, don't mistake activity for results. Sales managers, I think, often get caught up with trying to make sure and manage to make sure every activity gets done every day. Like, you've got 112 phone calls to make, you only made 109. You've got X emails to send. The problem is that really quickly, the goal becomes about checking a box and not about getting the meeting. So I think my biggest, that's the most common thing I think for sales managers is I watch activity. I do not score them on it. I do not talk about it. I am just fine if there's a week where our activities are down. But now if we don't hit our meeting quota, now we go talk about it, because if you're not getting meetings, it's because of your activity. So that's all I got on tracking your funnel. All right, so those 6 things. So we are the result. Our team's aligned. We've got a common goal. We've got a consistent, repeatable sales process. So we're turning new sales guys far faster than we ever had. We're onboarding the right people. Acquisitions. So this is kind of an unexpected one, unexpected surprise. We've had actually a lot of success onboarding other companies, smaller companies, and like, this system works so well that we can just literally like kind of bolt it into another organization's system, and we've had massive success. So that's something that we are continuing to try to do. We are actively looking for networks for acquisitions in new markets. So if anybody's willing to or would like to have a conversation about that, I'd love to do that. The second thing that's been a surprise is just dropping sales guys into new markets has been really, really effective, and growing it organically because we've got the system and the system works. So when I started the conversation, I mentioned the consultant who said, boy, that's what we call hair on fire growth, boys. So to complete that story, that consultant we had last year went back and looked, and they did a survey of a bunch of our customers. They had a few hundred customers respond to this survey, and they talked with all of our employees, and they looked through all our systems, and they looked through all our financials. And the whole comment was, yeah, boy, guys, this is what we call hair on fire growth. But actually, hair on fire growth, you really didn't have any growing pain, which is just so awesome. It's what I want for you guys as well. So hopefully you find this content helpful. I would love for you guys to all just have a hair on fire growth the next 4 years and not experience any of the growing pains that go along with it.
Sounds amazing. So we're going to open up for Q&A after a short, kind of a quick pause. Thank you, Nate. I would encourage you guys to give with Nate. He's because their organization has been so successful. He has a lot of wisdom and even some time to discuss, whether it's just best practice, picking his brain, acquisition stuff. Contact Nate. Phenomenal resource, great professional. Scan that now and keep your phone out. So we're gonna do 1 or 2 more. If so, perhaps here in just a second, why don't we answer a question? Then I want to maybe go to the next slide, and we'll keep answering questions as soon as you want to, Greg.
I have a question for Nate. I want to emphasize a point that Nate made at the beginning that I think is easy to overlook but extraordinarily important. Would you please repeat, Nate, the purpose that you gave us at the beginning?
Yeah, so our purpose is to help people become their best self.
So understand what he just said. What he just said has nothing to do with growing your company. It has nothing to do with making money. It has everything to do with helping your people become the best versions of themselves. That is a unique purpose in our industry. Nobody that I know of, okay, has a purpose like that. And believe me, it has a massive impact on everything that came after this. I mean, Nate's he's giving you kind of a broad outline here of a process that he goes through. But if you are not doing it for the right reasons, it won't work. It's not what you do, it's why you do it. So that's all I wanted to point out.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Just a quick comment here. This is the SDG sales tool that Nate mentioned, is the ADM. So account development meeting, this is one of the most valuable things that STG has built to help grow companies. So if you would like, just scan this and we will get it to you. Just fill out the info so that we can send it to you, and would help us know that's what you're looking for, and you can use it. But this is a must-have if you are a B2B commercial roofing of any type of account-based selling. You would need to incorporate this as a must-have. So go ahead and do that, and then we have a resource that we can share that Greg has here shortly. Greg, why don't you can you pick some questions that Nate
so there are a variety of questions from a variety of people around compensation, and I think that probably let me start with this. If you want somebody to make $150,000 a year, what do they have to sell?
Good question. Oh, boy, I can't answer that off the top of my head. So the way we're structuring it, our sales guys need to sell re-roofing, they need to sell service work, they also need to have meetings. So I'm actually paying guys to have those development meetings. I don't actually care what the result of that meeting is, because good things happen when we have meetings. So our guys they'll make 30 grand a year just having those meetings. Private message me or shoot me an email and I can get you the answer to that. But I just don't know off the top of my head without digging into some numbers.
So let me flip this question, the same topic around. Would you be willing to share what your top salesman generates annually in compensation for himself?
Yeah. So yes, I guess I'll say that there are guys, if you picture what does a top 1% real estate guy make, they're making a lot of money. They're doing super, super well for themselves. That's who my competition is when I'm looking to hire sales guys. So it's significantly higher than it's high.
So, and I know what it is, and I won't say because it's clear you don't want to share that specifically, and that's fine. Okay. But what I will say on your behalf is most of the people listening to this would choke if they knew how much money these salespeople were making, because in many cases, these salespeople are making phenomenal amounts of money. They don't have any upward limit.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
If you want, whoever asked the question, I'm happy to have more detailed conversation privately with you guys.
Yeah, and I'll say this, like their sales team, they're studs, like they're dudes, they're professional, they're engaging, they're like, you could put them in front of a national account, you can put them from a regional account, a C-suite. Like if you want to grow in the private sector, as you go higher, it's going to be met with different levels of resistance, different levels of emotional intelligence, different savvy, different needs of creativity and thinking on your feet. So you're gonna, I really, it was nice to see the comp that came with the talent and the amount of trust that you will see you can have with that type of talent as they mature in the role. And so that's,
I
that's
got to share a quick story. So one of my sales guys comes back from a meeting just all jazzed up, just on fire. He says, so we use, we had a sales development rep, like get a cold call and schedule a meeting for this meeting. And they schedule the meeting with the CFO, and the CFO makes the maintenance guy come. And so the maintenance guy doesn't want to have this meeting. CFO says, you're having this meeting. So he walks into the room and goes and shakes the guy's hand. Hey, I'm Nate with Weather Shield. And the guy looks at his hand, crosses his arms, says, look, I don't want to be here. My boss made me come. So what do you got for me? And sits down. By the end of the meeting, he can't wait to get a quote from us and can't wait to work from us. It's like, that's the kind of, like, I mean, it's like, oh. And what his response was like, after a meeting, you kind of like take it back and be like, okay. It's like, you know what? I actually really appreciate your candor, because most people in your shoes are going to walk in here, they're going to smile and put on a fake smile, they're going to shake my hand, and they're going to pretend that they want to be here. Like, so I really appreciate your candor. Now, having said that, you came, your CFO asked you to come. Why did you even show up? And you shut up and listen, and just slowly just lower that resistance. And by the end of the conversation, it's like, it's ready to go.
so good.
Nate has just given you all a tip in selling. That is the third time today where he has said, shut up and listen. Selling is not about talking. Selling is more about listening than it is talking.
Yep. Nate, we got a great point. We want to get through all these questions.
Yeah,
So we have a few questions here. Maybe I'll have one and then you get the next one. Great.
Fine.
Yeah.
Go.
Brian Tice has 3 questions, so you can answer all 3. What's the mix of service and re-roofing? I would just any mix you want to share. That's one question. What's your top reps? I mean, I'm thinking like the Kens, the Bens and maybe the Kyles. What are those guys doing? What are they expecting to do this year? Round numbers.
Sure.
And then those 2 would probably cover the third one, which is the production side.
Yeah. So top guys are selling $7 to $12 million in re-roofing and $1 to $2 million in service work. The work mix is probably 30% repairs, 70% re-roofing. Maybe it's a little higher than that. Maybe it's 35, 65. Our guys are they're incentivized to sell service over re-roofing. It's generally what we would do if it were our roof. And it's what the customer generally would want, because it's how we lower costs. So we want to align our compensation with what the customer wants, with what's best for them. So yeah, typically our commission rates are higher on the service side than they are on the re-roofing side.
So when you say that somebody may sell in excess of $10 million in total, what is a typical production job for one of these?
I think our average job size is, it's not huge. It's probably $150,000 or $175,000
okay,
for a re-roofing job and $10,000 for a service job.
So if he's selling $10 million of work and the average job is $100,000, he's making lots of sales.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yep. important point, because I know some people that do over $10 million a year in
Yeah.
sales, it may be 2 jobs.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
You know, and then that may not represent the same quality of sales performance.
yeah, that's a good point, Craig.
Another question that I saw was, what would be the first step for a field guy who's been picked to start a sales division in the company?
The first step is you've got to get trained on, like, I would do a profile and see, like, that's the beauty of these profiles. You can see exactly, so how are you wired? Because I don't care about skills. Were you born to do this role? If yes, now what are the skills? And there's going to be gaps. There's gaps in my skill set. So now you just pick what are you going to work on first? So I'm going to answer this question 2 ways. So that's the who. Then the second question, I guess, is what are they actively doing? So the who, make sure you got the right person, see what the skills gaps are. We partner with STG, so he's going through a bunch of training stuff that doesn't require my time to go get them up to speed. So when he's out of the sales academy, he knows all of the foundational stuff, and now he's ready to start going and learning his craft. So that's the basics. Now, assuming all of that's done and he's ready to, okay, day one, ready to go walk out the door, what is he doing? He's working his networks. So it's active hands. It's networking groups. It's nothing, there's nothing sexy about it. It's just hard freaking work. And you go door knock and you cold call and you talk to everyone you know and you call in favors and you just work your tail off to try to find out if there's a need and get a meeting scheduled.
That's a good answer. Another question we got came in from Adam. This is a good question. He says, I'm curious to know if your team, meaning your sales people, ever divert from the norm if they notice a large opportunity. For an example, there's a large commercial job, but the customer's out of state and you can't meet in person.
Yeah, great question. So absolutely. Your job as sales manager is to know when they need to follow the system and when they need to break the rules. So a system is not designed to do 100%. You follow it or you don't do it. No question, there are opportunities where you get to the end of that meeting and the answer is not favorable to every one of those questions, and you are talking with a professional buyer who won't give you the time that you think you need. My sales guys don't generally get to make those, don't get to qualify those without a conversation with me to say, hey, I think this is an opportunity we need to pursue, even though I didn't get this and this. What do you think? Yep. And maybe you can set up a Zoom meeting. But yes, we're practical.
Great answer. Ryan, you have one to read?
Sure. I got a couple here. I think we've answered a few of Scott's. I'm encouraging folks to email you personally if there's some, some data that we can, that's more private to you guys. I'm sure you'd share offline. So I have a couple here. How did you drive the leads to support the growth? And maybe you can share a little bit about what you did then, and maybe even what you may be needing to do now. Let's answer David's question, then we'll have another one from Scott here after that.
Yeah.
So what did we do to drive leads to support growth? Yeah, it's a good question. So initially it's all marketing, and it's repeat customers who are we're sitting there waiting for the phone to ring. Now that's less than 40% of our sales. The 60% is sales guys going and walking out the door and going and hunting to go find your food. So it's everything I just said at the last answer, right? You cold call, you knock on doors, you work your networks, you do whatever it takes to go find those, to go schedule those meetings, and meetings are where good things happen.
Yeah, I'll just answer, just to add a little bit of color. Just, I mean, there's a few things. You got the ADMs, which is existing accounts. You have influencers, so people who would be centers of influence who could introduce you to those people. So meeting with them and exploring introductions and referrals. It's networking events, so BOMA, IFMA, your apartment associations, any group that folks who manage and who talk about buildings. That's their job, is they own or manage, or they talk about buildings, and go network there and make friends and connect and ask about the need, and schedule your meeting to do discovery when there's an identified need. And then you can cold call too, just cold right into folks that you can find with data. And then most recently, what we've been working with at STG is something that's called a formal sales blitz, in which the whole entire team puts on the jersey, puts on the shirt, and we make a plan and we knock a certain number of doors. Typically, you're going to get to 65 to 80% of those doors you knock, you'll get a contact, and you're going to find that you'll end up having the ability to schedule a meeting within a few days to somewhere. And again, if your salespeople aren't very good, or they don't do a lot of doors, this won't happen. But if they're effective, they're hustling, you'll see somewhere between 15 to 20% of those contacts will actually give you a schedule an appointment, because there's a lot of folks with active leaks or issues. So that's just hard work, but it's work. And that's why sales guys get paid to do what they do, because it's not fun. But it's just a part of it. So anyway, Scott has a question. Do you work with business development and sales, as in openers and closers, or all your sales who close the business? Go ahead, Nate.
It's so I just to comment on the last one. Jim Bush, my esteemed father and visionary, just said, "Hey, don't forget volunteering as a lead source." We've gotten some great leads because we sit on boards and committees. 100%. Okay, Brian, I just realized I wasn't listening at all to whatever the question you just asked. So do it one more time.
Volunteering is good. I love that.
Before he does, I want to jump back on what Jim just asked as well, because I know of contractors where the owner sits on nothing but not-for-profit boards, and he sucks in all kinds of work, and he doesn't go there. People say, "What do you do?" "Well, I'm a roofing contractor." "Really? Well, I want you to call so-and-so." And they get up work that way. Volunteering is can be a massively effective way of doing it if you're doing it for the right reasons, because a part of this is actually the volunteer to help. Now, go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, it's so good. So good. I mean, at the end of the day, guys, it's about relationships, and our ability to build meaningful relationships, create trust, and open doors and lower resistance, and allow us to have open tracks to make things happen. And I think that's phenomenal. And typically that's where the sales leaders, the CEOs, the visionaries can be the most useful, is building high leverage relationships throughout your community and being supportive. So really, really good. One more question before we shift into some of the things that Greg has to offer, and then final words. Scott had another question that I'll repeat. Do you work with business development and sales, as in openers and closers, or are all the sales people who open also do the closing?
Yeah, so that's a fantastic question. So most of our sales guys are just finding their own leads and working their own networks. So there is not an expectation that leads are going to be handed to them. I'm super intrigued with the business development idea. I think that's an awesome idea, and I don't have enough experience to tell you if that works or not.
I think that I'll speak to it. There's obviously some compensation. There's things like that impacted that decision, because business development would typically essentially be a marketing cost. But I think that, maybe you could speak to this, Nate. You have some maybe more junior, young bucks who are talented. They're just young, right? So they're out there hunting. How have you helped ramp them up with maybe a different way to answer how you guys have done this? Is it with, like, maybe I'm thinking Kurt?
Okay, say that question as if I was like a sixth grader, maybe.
You don't have openers and closers devoted in your org chart, but you have junior sales reps. But because you have junior, instead of taking some of your best reps and working with them to close for them, you have Kurt who
I
coaches.
understand.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for asking that again, like I'm a sixth grader. So a sales manager's job is two parts. Half of it's coaching, half of it's managing. So my master's in psychology is Kurt. He is generally going with my team, and we're doing tag team sales, and he's helping them close work and helping them train. So it works because I have the right guy. That's a sales manager role. To split that in half, I don't know that works the majority of the time, but if you have the right person and you're super well connected and you guys are really on the same page, I think that can work. But yeah, your job as a sales manager is to help them grow. So yes, it is to go along with them and help them sell.
Hey, we had a quick question from David. The size of your sales team, how big, the number of people? I answered 9 to 10, but you want to?
Yeah, 10-ish.
Cool. Awesome. Can you go to to Greg's resource? For those of you still on, we have most everybody here. There is an opportunity to get some training. Greg, speak to what we have here.
So today we've been talking about generating revenue. But once you generate the revenue, you got to get the work done. And one of the great things about this podcast that Ryan and I have is that Ryan is kind of the expert on the sales side, and Greg is more on an expert on the operations side. And so we have prepared a video for you entitled, "If you really want to roll, you need to fix your roles." Because a lot of people do not understand how a service department needs to work operationally effectively. And just like you got to have the right people in the right roles on the sales side, you also have to have the right people in the right roles on the operations side to make it work. And in this video, we're going to explain to you what the roles are, not by title, but what they do and who should be personality-wise doing those. So if you click on that QR code, it'll take you to a link that'll give you access to that. And we'd be glad to share it.
Please do. I encourage you. It's a very valuable resource. Nate would like to answer this question that Adam asked, which is, what types of training could you share during the onboarding process? A year is a long time.
So Adam, awesome question. So yes, it takes a really long time to get somebody who's fully trained. Our guys are out the door and they're knocking in 3 weeks. So we leverage STG really heavily with our onboarding process. So that's a great conversation to follow up with STG. But I apologize if I was not clear on that. I don't mean it takes a year before they're out on their own. They're out early. It's a year before they have a really healthy pipeline and they're not happy making 150 grand a year. That's what I meant.
Cool. Excellent. So if you guys, 10 more seconds here to scan the resource for Greg. Hopefully you guys are loving your camera feature here. I got 3 opportunities to connect with Nate, to receive a ADM tool, the STG tool for the account development meetings. Do you want to roll? Fix your roles. I love how you spelled it correctly. I think we've all seen, what role are you in? I mean, wait, ROLL. I'm in the dinner role. Just kidding. All right, next slide here. If we can wrap it up with this.
Ryan.
You're good. Oh, one more time. Keep it going. Okay, maybe again. Is that it?
That's the last slide.
Oh, I thought I had one more. You're fine. Yeah. So if you guys want to connect with Nate and Bush at weathershieldUSA.com. If you want to put your email in the chat, go ahead. Greg Hayne, if you guys are not familiar, which I know many of you are, but if you happen to not be familiar with Greg has these peer groups that he puts together, and he's doing them for commercial roofing contractors, residential roofing contractors. And Greg has been engaging and working with the best in the industry for quite some time. And he also has a service video training course that is very helpful. So if you guys are not engaged with that, haven't invested in those resources, I encourage you to do that. Greg, if you can, offer his info, you go to haynecoachinggroup.com, or you can also email him at greg@haynecoachinggroup.com. If you are not familiar with what STG can do, we can certainly explore that. Just visit our website and schedule a call, salestransformationgroup.com. If you want to ask me a question, you can email me at rgroth@salestransformationgroup.com. Yes, it's long. I know. I'm finding one way I'll shorten it. But anyhow, we're super grateful you guys joined us today. We hope it was very valuable, and you can expect Greg and I will be doing one again, and maybe somewhere between 40 and 60 days. And hopefully it's as valuable as this. That'll be tough to top though, because Nate, you brought a lot of preparation and experience and results to share today. So
thanks, Nate. Did a really good job.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
Love it. Okay, everybody, I'm gonna drop this one more time, and you are free to go. So God bless you. Enjoy building your business, and we'll talk
Thanks,
to you.
everybody.